Hi, everybody. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, everybody.
Hi. So tonight we are going to be listening to Rumi. I'm going to read some pieces. If someone has a favorite piece, then I'm going to pass over to you. And I wanted to listen to some Coleman Barks reading Rumi, because he's not just reading poetry in these excerpts. He's also talking a little bit about, the life of Sufism with Rumi and the Mawlana that he started. So, and there's one brief video that we have of him reading with the person who inspired him to do these translations, Robert Bly, the great Robert Bly, who started the men's movement here in the United States, and who's now probably 86 or 87 and probably, close to passing, and no longer performs. I talked to Charlie Gardner, the Baba lover, Charlie Gardner, who lives in Athens, Georgia, last week, and he said that Coleman Barks has had several heart attacks in the past years and is really no longer performing and is really staying at home and has people caring for him now. So it's a great, if you've had any inspiration to share Rumi with others, it's a great time to think about doing that, because he will leave a big void when he passes. And since he's not performing, that void has already begun. For a lot of people, hearing Rumi performed is their introduction to Rumi, because so many people don't read poetry. So if you feel called to do that at all, it's a good time to do that. I think we all know Rumi well enough to where we don't need to go into the history of how Rumi and Shams met and how that changed Rumi's life, and how he did not write poetry until the death of Shams, and really just spontaneously started to recite poetry. And he did not write any of his work down. Other people wrote it down for him. Diane, yes.
I'm not as savvy about their history. I do know that Shams disappeared and that Rumi was just devastated, but I didn't know if you ever found out what happened to him. And then my next question was were they in love with each other? I know that's 12th century love. I mean 13th century love, but
yeah. Well, so a couple of things we could say about that. One is that we know that in the Islamic faith, homosexuality is punishable by death. However, if you're a Sufi, you don't give a darn about rules. So we don't really know if it was a romantic relationship. Rumi was married to a woman, and so there's there's speculation both ways. And I'm not really, I'm just gonna be honest with you, to me, it's not the essential question, because this was clearly a guided friendship. They both prayed to meet someone that was really a soul friend, and were guided, to actually meet each other. And so whether it was romantic or not, they were clearly in love on some level. I think that's pretty clear. And
has it ever been talked about if any of those love poems were to him?
They were all to him, yeah.
All to him.
Yes, this book, which is called The Big Red Book, it's my favorite Rumi book. Every single one of these poems is to Shams. And that's why I love it so much, because it's really about the confusing profoundness of love and the intense longing that it creates and the anguish that it creates. The word passion comes from the word in Latin, passio, which means to suffer. And Christ's death was called the Passion of Christ, the suffering of Christ, out of love. So, you have all those aspects of love that Rumi addresses, including the profound grief that he felt. So we don't know if Shams was killed or if he was simply run out of town and threatened with his life or hurt in some way. But knowing that Shams really did not care about, and this was one of the things that he taught Rumi, because Rumi was really above reproach in all things. He would, for example, never touch a prostitute. He would never go into a wine house. He would never carry a jug of wine. Those were forbidden. But Shams asked him to do those very things, and he did them because Shams wanted him to see that those rules, which are so highly prized, were really not what it was about. And this is one of the reasons why Shams was driven out of town or potentially murdered, because Rumi's family was very worried that Rumi's reputation would be ruined by Shams, and it may have been, but Rumi did not care. That's how deep the connection was, and that's how much he understood that love is really, the ultimate game, and that the rules really don't apply when you reach that level of love. So I tend to think it's like one of the reasons why, Baba lovers around Baba would white lie, because I just feel like on some level they understood that, it wasn't really about the rules. So because his family and his disciples were extraordinarily jealous and concerned for the reputation of Rumi, that is why he was driven out. And it was Rumi's own son who played a role in that, as well as some of Rumi's disciples. And Rumi knew what happened. He knew that Shams had been either murdered, harmed, or driven out of town, so profoundly so that Shams was never heard of again. He knew that. And he still chose to forgive the people that were involved and remain their teacher, which for me was a profound lesson that could happen. Thank you for asking those questions, Diane. I appreciate it. So I'm going to read from the Big Red Book. And apparently it was bound in a red cover, and that's why it was called the Big Red Book. And this one is called Earsight. Do you want the sweetness of food or the sweetness of the one who put sweetness in food? There are amazing things in the ocean, and there is the one who is the ocean. Think of a carpenter's alert comprehension as he builds a house. Now think of the one who creates consciousness. It takes skill to extract oil from a nut. Now consider how sight lives in the eye. There is a night full of the wildness of wanting. Then dawn comes. You take my hand in yours. There are those who doubt this can happen. They pour powdered gold into barley bins. They follow donkeys to the barn. Enough words. Friend, you can make the ear see. Speak the rest of the poem in that language. Shall I read it again?
Yeah.
Do you want the sweetness of food or the sweetness of the one who puts sweetness in food? There are amazing things in the ocean, and there is the one who is the ocean. Think of a carpenter's alert comprehension as he builds a house. Now think of the one who creates consciousness. It takes skill to extract oil from a nut. Now consider how sight lives in the eye. There is a night full of the wildness of wanting. Then dawn comes. You take my hand in yours. There are those who doubt that this can happen. They pour powdered gold into barley bins. They follow donkeys to the barn. Enough words. Friends, you can make the ear see. Speak the rest of the poem in that language. So one of the great things about Sufi poetry, of course, is that it straddles the seen worlds and the unseen worlds and really attempts to bridge them, which I think in my experience of Christianity, the exact opposite happened. And I think in most religions, they're seen as worlds that are a little bit at odds. And to me, it's one of the great things about Sufi poetry is that it really attempts to marry those worlds and stop the conflict. And I feel like that's one of the things that he's talking about here. You know, go beyond the form and look at what's beyond it. And this phrase is a little confusing. They pour powdered gold into barley bins. They follow donkeys to the barn. I feel like what he's saying is that so often we as human beings fail to see our own royalness. We fail to see our own divine birthright, and we follow a donkey to the barn. You know, we fail to go to a place where that would be uplifting to us. So any thoughts or questions or comments? I'm going to read one more and then we're going to listen to some Coleman Barks. And by the way, did anyone bring any Rumi that you'd like to read so I can make sure we make room for you? I'm so sorry that Rami isn't here. Oh, you've got something, Diana?
I just have this book, and it was interesting. I opened it it had been marked on a certain page, and I have never read that poem at RT or here, so maybe we'll look at that later if you want.
Absolutely. Oh, great. I'm so glad.
Variety, not that you read so well, but anyway, this would be variety.
I would love to. You read very well. So I would love to hear you read something. And I'm sorry Randy's not here because I meant to say thank you to Randy for reading last week. I'm sure that was really great to hear Francis Brabazon. And we have a lot of Francis Brabazon fans. Okay. This one is called.
Thank you.
Oh, good, Rainey. I'm glad you heard that. Yeah, thank you.
I'm here. I'm just trying to put the shopping away. I think it went very well. I think people enjoyed all the contrasting, very early poems to later poems.
I'm sure. And you have such a good, in-depth understanding of the various aspects of poetry. I feel certain that you did a fabulous job of sharing that with people. So thank you for that.
Did my best.
Yeah.
Thank you. Jai Baba.
Papa. And I'm sorry I wasn't here. This one is called The Shine in the Fields. The shine in the fields and in the orchard have become the light of your face. No home now, no loved occupation, no belongings, no figuring profit and loss. When this love comes, it is impossible to worry about honor or reputation. What the community gives, the more and the less. There is no longer any demarcation line between the worlds. Hats fly off. A pack of dogs snarl and bite each other around a carcass. We are not those dogs. Only God knows our secrets, and that is enough. We have no more arguments over doctrine. What is planted in each person's soul will sprout. We surrender to however that happens. Companions used to be magnets that drew us together to talk. No more. No more even the sun. It has turned itself into the face of Shams Tabriz, the sanctity and the praise. Shall I read it again or any comments? I'm just going to read it again because I think poetry just has so much depth to it and so many layers. It's just lovely to hear them all twice. You just get to enter it into a deeper layer. The shine in the fields and in the orchard have become the light of your face. No home now, no loved occupation, no belongings, no figuring profit and loss. When this love comes, it is impossible to worry about honor or reputation, what the community gives or the more and the less. There is no longer any demarcation line between the worlds. Hats fly off. A pack of dogs snarl and bite each other around a carcass. We are not those dogs. Only God knows our secrets, and that is enough. We have no more arguments over doctrine. What is planted in each person's soul will sprout. We surrender to however that happens. Companions used to be magnets that drew us together to talk. No more. No more even the sun. It has turned itself into the face of Shams Tabriz, the sanctity and the praise. Diana, why don't you read the one you've pulled, and then we listen to some Coleman Barks.
Okay, I'll do that. And before I read, I just wanted to add, I forgot to mention earlier that last week's meeting was recorded, so you can enjoy it at your leisure.
Oh, right. Yes. Awesome.
Wonderful. Yeah. Okay, I don't know why I marked this, but when I read it, I thought that's pretty good. He calls it Love Dogs.
Oh, this is my favorite Rumi poem.
No way.
My absolute favorite.
One night a man was crying, Allah, Allah. His lips grew sweet with praising, until a cynic said, so, I have heard you calling out, but have you ever gotten any response? The man had no answer to that. He quit praying and fell into a confused sleep. He dreamed he saw Keter, the guide of souls, in a thick green foliage. Why did you stop praising? Because I've never heard anything back. This longing you express is the return message. The grief you cry out from draws you toward union. Your pure sadness that wants help is the secret cup. Listen to the moan of a dog for its master. That whining is the connection. There are love dogs no one knows the names of. Give your life to be one of them.
I told the story about how I was going through some pretty profound grief years ago, and said to myself, I think grief has the power to put me in my grave, and I meant my physical grave. And the very next day, Kathy Riley, the Bible lover, called me, and she said, Coleman Barks is coming to Asheville. Do you want to go hear him? And I said, yeah. So I had never heard him before. So we went to the Asheville school where he was reading, and he read that poem. And in the moment that he read that poem, I said to myself, oh no, grief does not have the power to put me in my grave. Grief is the doorway. And it just gave me so much hope that I would be able to get through that grief. And I did. That poem. Yeah, that poem. Thank you for reading it.
Yeah, it reminds me of a saying, I think, that's in the Pilgrim Center, you know, when you go into to eat, when we used to go in to eat there, one of the sayings is, sometimes no answer is the answer.
Right.
And I think they're connected.
Yes, that's well said. So here's a brief bit of Coleman Barks reading Rumi. And this was actually in California, not far from you, Diane.
Let me finish by quoting one more sentence of Coleman's on the values found in Sufi poetry. Be loyal to your daily practice, he says. Keep working and keep knocking on the door. As you'll remember, it is said in one of Rumi's most pithy moments that the door we're knocking on opens from the inside. Please join me in a Santa Barbara welcome to the Phillipses and Coleman Barks.
Thank you. There is a practice that the Sufis call sama, which is a deep listening together to poetry and music with sometimes movement involved. The first poem will be Rumi's poem about that listening or that practice. I claim that practice that the Sufis have refined for 1,000 years is now experiencing a kind of revival in the United States. In that, it's not unusual in a city like Missoula or Kalamazoo or Charleston or Boulder or even Athens, Georgia, for a crowd to assemble on a Thursday night or any night and listen to mystical poetry, not just Rumi's, but to listen to it. And it turns out it's not quite a performance. It doesn't quite have that feel sometimes. Sometimes there's no clapping, but there's a going in feeling. And I think this is amazing. San Francisco is sort of the capital of this renaissance of the sama, the deep listening. And sometimes when Joe Miller was alive, he would show up on the front row, and at the end he would yell out the Sufi name of God, Ya Fatah, Ya Fatah. He had a voice kind of like a trumpet, if any of you knew Joe. And everybody would call back Ya Fatah, the opener. So this is what this is trying to do, is to open us to the flow of the divine. Rumi has a kind of reed flute theory of language. He says that we are hollow, empty flutes, and that every now and then some music comes through us. But the music always has a kind of whine to it, because the reed flute always wants to go back to the reed bed where it lived in the mud of God and made sugar cane. So there's always a kind of homesickness in the reed flute's song. Well, here is Rumi's poem about listening. What is the deep listening? Sama is a greeting from the secret ones inside the heart, a letter. The branches of your intelligence grow new leaves in the wind of this listening. The body reaches a peace. Rooster sound comes, reminding you of your love for dawn. The reed flute and the singer's lips, the knack of how spirit breathes into us, becomes as simple as eating and drinking. The dead rise with the pleasure of this listening. Listen and feel the beauty of your separation, the unsayable absence. There's a moon inside every human being. Learn to be companions with it. Give more of your life to this listening. as brightness is to time, so you are to the one who talks to the deep ear in your chest. I should sell my tongue and buy 1,000 ears. When that one steps near and begins to speak. So, these poems were spoken spontaneously by Jalaluddin Rumi 700 years ago as part of the work he was doing with a dervish learning community in Konya, Turkey. The work of the community was the work of opening the heart and exploring that mystery they call union, and to search out and to fiercely try to say the truth, and to celebrate the difficulty and the glory of being in a human incarnation.
So Coleman Barks talks a lot about this idea of listening and conversation. And according to him, Rumi felt that the three most important practices of human being were prayer, meditation, and conversation, which is what he's referring to here as sabat or soma, conversation, and the listening and the deep listening and the deep responding. And I think it's so interesting that Rumi would say that, because I think most people would be very surprised by adding the word conversation into a discipline. I think we all think of prayer as a discipline and meditation for sure as a discipline, but not usually conversation. And it reminds me that, prayer is essentially a conversation that we have with the divine, and hopefully we're mostly singing praises and listening for what comes back to us through that prayer, and hopefully we are receptive enough to what we are given in our asking, because as we know, it's sometimes easier to ask for something than it is to receive it. And in meditation, of course, that is also a kind of conversation, because we are essentially bearing witness to the conversation inside our head and attempting to muffle that conversation so that the deeper conversation can be heard. So I just want to, so I chose some things that Coleman Barks was referring to that were really about all of these things. Because he refers to them so many times when you listen to Coleman Barks speak. I remember when I was living in Europe after I graduated from photography school, I noticed that, and I wish Farishte was here to give us her perspective of having been raised in northern Iran, but I noticed when I was in Europe, if a conversation came up that was controversial about religion or politics or anything like that, people really paid attention to what you were saying, and then they responded. They actually would think about it, and then they would say something back, and there was this beautiful dialogue that happened there that I was shocked by. And I remember one day I was in a restaurant in Germany, and I said to the person I was having dinner with, he was German, I said, "Are those the politicians for the town over there?" There was this table of the extremely loud, passionate conversation, and I thought they must be talking about something very important. He said, "Oh no, they have been hunting today, and they're talking about the hunt." And I thought, oh my God. And so I just want to share that as a seed for us to think about, because we are clearly in a time of humanity where we are greatly divided. And it is very difficult to have a conversation with people about their perspective if we don't agree with it. In fact, I don't think we even really know how to do that anymore. And And I feel like it's something we can really learn from that perspective that Rumi is presenting to us and that Coleman Barks is presenting to us, to have a conversation. So any comments or thoughts? We'll carry on, my friends. This is another piece from Coleman Barks that is quite lovely. He's playing with a sitar and a tabla player, and talking a little bit about this thing that we're talking about.
Nature of God. So here's a poem about conversation and the importance of that inner-outer exchange, which sometimes they call sohbet, S-O-H-B-E-T. I went to Turkey, and in the back of a lot of Turkish houses, there what calls a sohbet house, and it's just a rectangular room with a bench all the way around, and you sit in there and you talk, not about anything in particular, but just this is like almost like a Quaker meeting idea. So the exchange is the reason that building is there. So here's a poem about the nature of that exchange and its importance. It's crucial because what comes of the conversation that he's talking about here is the eloquence and the strength and the generosity and the modesty and the handsomeness on what they call the opening of the heart. Whenever they wanted to call mystics of all traditions into their meetings, they would simply put a rose above the door. Isn't that great? What was said to the rose that made it open was said to me here in my chest. What was told the cypress that made it strong and straight, what was whispered the jasmine, so it is what it is, whatever made sugarcane sweet. Whatever was said to the inhabitants of the town of Chugil in Turkestan that makes them so handsome. Whatever lets the pomegranate flower blush like a human face, that is being said to me now. I blush. Whatever put eloquence in language, that's happening here. Whatever put eloquence in language, that's happening here. Just in the middle of the poem, he says, you want to know what eloquence is? I'm doing it now. So. The great warehouse doors open, and I fill with gratitude, chewing a piece of sugarcane. In love with the one to whom every that belongs. What was said to the rose that made it open was said to me here in my chest. What was whispered the jasmine, what was told the cypress that made it strong and straight. Whatever lets the pomegranate flower blush like a human face. Whatever makes the inhabitants of the town of Chugil in Turkestan so handsome. Whatever put eloquence in language, that's happening here. The great warehouse doors open, and I fill with gratitude, chewing a piece of sugar cane. Whenever you get to the sugar cane parts, you got to sing. That's just a rule that I made. Whatever was said to the inhabitants of the town of Asheville. I fill with silence, in love with the one to whom every that belongs. What was said to the rose that made it open was said to me in my chest. This is a sequence of, this is my directing. Did these actually grow here in this cold weather? We've had them in the South, of course, for months. Tonight we're here with 1,000 hidden mystics, concealed and absolutely obvious, like the soul, self-evident. Tonight, this may be true. Tonight we're here with 1,000 hidden mystics, concealed and absolutely obvious, like the soul, self-evident. I've always thought that the soul is just self-evident. Look, here we are, all connected. Musicians, soul knowers, everybody, keep looking. We need more of these invisible dancers. He saw a lot of invisible dancers, and he became one. He was the first whirling dervish, you know. He started turning one afternoon on streets of Konya, Turkey. He heard of music in the gold beaters' hammers, and he tried then to become in harmony with the molecules and the galaxies. And so he started turning. And they said he turned for 36 hours. I don't know. And that's the story anyway. And then he fell, but he said, I didn't fall. Today, I love these little short quatrains. Today, like every other day, we wake up empty and frightened. Don't open the door to the study and begin reading. Take down a musical instrument. Let the beauty we love be what we do. Let the beauty we love be what we do. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. See what he did with 5 times prayer then? There are hundreds of ways to do it. You can't do it wrong. Today, like every other day, we wake up empty and frightened. We wake up confused, and bored. Don't open the door to the study and begin reading. Take down a musical instrument. Let the beauty we love be what we do. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. There is a light seed grain inside. You fill it with yourself or it dies. There is a light seed grain inside. You fill it with yourself or it dies. I'm caught in this curling energy. Your hair. Whoever is calm and sensible is insane. Take that, Norman Vincent Peale. If you're calm and sensible and then you're insane. It's just not appropriate to be that way in the midst of 400 billion galaxies and all this beauty. Imagining is like feeling around in a dark lane or washing your eyes with blood. You are the truth from foot to brow now. What else would you like to know? You are the truth from foot to brow now. What else would you like to know? You're not going to learn it from books. Do not presume the earth around you, this world. Do not think all this is unconscious. It is rather like a rabbit awake with eyes half closed. It is like a pot of water when 1,000 tiny bubbles begin to come up to tell the cook it is about to boil. It is rather like a pot of water when 1,000 tiny bubbles begin to come up to tell the cook it is about to boil. There's a word for that in cuisine, the chefs know, but I've forgotten it. Somebody in this room knows that. No. I'm so small, I can barely be seen. How can this great love be inside me? That's his big question. How can this great love be inside me? And then he answers it. Look at your eyes. They're small, but they see enormous things. That's called a metaphor. Is it? Your eyes are small, but they can take in the night sky. That's how this great love can be inside you.
Wonderful, thank you.
I know, so good. Hard to turn it off.
Yeah.
So I think probably most of you know the rest of that one little bit that he did that's so famous. Today, like every other day, we wake up empty and frightened. Don't open the door to the study and begin reading. Take down a musical instrument. Let the beauty we love be what we do. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door sills where the two worlds touch. Don't go back to sleep. I would love to kiss you. The price of kissing is your life. Now, my life is running towards my loving, shouting, what a bargain. Let's buy it. Daylight, filled with small dancing particles and one great turning. Without feet, we dance. Can you see them when I whisper in your ear all day and night? Music, a quiet, bright reed song. When it fades, we fade. Today, like every other day, we wake up empty and frightened. Don't open the door to the study and begin reading Facebook. Take down a musical instrument. The beauty we love be what we do. There are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. So Rumi, you know, just because he spontaneously shared these and someone else wrote them down, there really were no titles and there were no beginnings and endings. And Coleman Barks tried to put them in these books where you could just sort of find that. But in fact, you know, those titles are kind of made up so that we can have starting and finishing points. Any comments so far about what we've been talking about?
Oh, I love that poem. And I think my husband translated that too. He translated 60 or 70 of the quatrains as Darvish Khan on Darvish Khan Writes, Bill Gannett. I didn't know if there was time for me to read 3 or 4 of his translated quatrains.
Absolutely. When did he do these, Rainey?
I think it was about 5 years ago. He disappeared for a year and that's what he was busy doing.
And how many poems did he translate?
60 or 70, I believe.
Wow.
On his blog, yeah.
And is Farsi is his second language?
No, he has a degree in Farsi from a university, a classical Farsi. Yeah.
Wow. What other language does he speak?
Oh, English mostly. I mean, he understands several languages because he was diplomatic corps and raised in various countries. I noticed that. But this, of course, it's classical Persian. So he writes and thinks in this, even if necessarily he's not conversational. He can follow conversations, but he doesn't get enough practice at that. He only practices translating.
Wow, thank you.
Will I read a couple up the top here from the top?
Absolutely.
Rumi quatrain 419. I said, because of my longing for you, I'm nuts. I said, because of my longing for you, I'm nuts. Do I see your chains of curls in my sleep or not? He replied, shut up. Why spin a yarn about this? Crazy and asleep. What phooey. Oh, one well taught. Note, like the chains that restrain the insane, chains of curls restrain the crazed lover. But as a rule, the crazy are insomniacs. And then the Persian is underneath the that. Oh boy, it closes up. It's such a nuisance.
We can't see it anyway because your screen is like a white flashlight.
No, then it closed up when I blew it up. It's an awkward.
Oh, well, yeah, take your time to find it.
Jeepers creepers. Here we go. Quatrains. It closed itself up when you then press. Oh, here we go. He's given me his computer. Thank you. Oh yes, the chains. Down we go. Comments, and again it has closed itself up, but it's much easier to find here. Darvish Khan. I don't like blog formats. Here we go. Rumi, 60 quatrains. Okay, Rumi number 9. That was forums and lovers. Oh, 170, Rumi quatrain. Lover shouts out for the candle of joy. Candle comes, but moth is silent, alas. Behold a light better than day or night. O soul, be quick. Heart fire longs for you. I'll read it again. Lover shouts out for the candle of joy. Candle comes, but moth is silent, alas. Behold a light better than day or night. O soul, be quick. Heart fire longs for you. I'll go down a few and just randomly. Oh, here's one that's great. It says, watch out. Oh no, it skipped over to something else. Oh, here we go. 1787. Watch out. Don't regret what is a past affair. Be a Sufi, drop the burden of all care. You are the child of now, in youth and old age, as long as you remain of each breath aware. Categories, quatrains. I keep having to go to categories, quatrains. It doesn't stay open. We have to correct this. When the drop of my soul became the ocean, the beauty of all souls began to shine in me. Like a candle, I burn in the way of love, so that all time becomes one light in me. Three, 1, 1. There's 60 or 70 sitting here. Oh, heart, you and your pain. Oh, this is referring to what you were referring to, Tracey. Oh, heart, you and your pain. This is the cure. Long and don't complain. This is the command. If you but kick hope and want for a while, the dog of ego will die. This is the sacrifice. Oh, heart, you and your pain. This is the cure. Long and don't complain. This is the command. If you but kick hope and want for a while, the dog of ego will die. This is the sacrifice. This is, we are cutting history here. This is the first time they have been read since he had his head underground for a long while. Oh, 1789. Oh, moon, you are radiant, full of light, but far from my idol's brilliant face. O Narcissus, though you be lit with joy, leave excused. You have yet to see the face. Or it could be her, him face, the face.
Mhm.
There isn't gender in these pieces. He ordered these very complicated, huge set of books of Rumi from Iran, and they came and away he went, disappeared into 60 or 70 of them. One last one, will I?
Yes.
1878. If you read a single page from our book, how astonished will you forever be? And if for a breath you submit to heart, oh, how wise, how the wise will fall to their knees. Let me read that again. 1878. If you read a single page from our book, how astonished will you forever be? And if for a breath you submit to heart, oh, how the wise will fall to their knees.
Mm.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow.
I'll send you the link.
Wow, those are lovely. Can I ask, what inspired your husband to get a degree in Farsi? That's such an unusual language.
Well, he came to Barbara as a young teen, 16, I believe, in Boston, and he went on to a university and studied philosophy, and he was finding it more and more boring because he'd already read, God Speaks, this everything of Barber's, and that was at Vassar. And so suddenly, I think when he got to India, he became fascinated by Persian script, and that trip sort of put a lot of it away as a script and an alphabet. And then he enrolled in Austin, Texas, Arabic and Persian 3-year degree, which he got, and I think always just kept translating. He didn't study conversational modern Persian, he studied classical Persian. And he's always done this. He has a whole group of hafiz he's translated. Then he got into writing his own 7-couplet English language ghazals. Then he went straight away, this huge series of books came, and that's when he did the 60 or 70 quatrains.
Mm.
I tuned one of them. I picked out 2 of his hafiz and Sam put one to music, which I sing. But I haven't really thought about these till you brought that up today. And then when Coleman read one of them,
Mm-hmm.
The Door, Bill has translated that one, and I remembered the whole set of them I'd forgotten about.
Would he have any interest in stepping on the screen and just talking to us a little bit about the ghazal form and what he understands about that? Because I find the whole thing slightly mysterious, and I would love to hear someone who really understands it to talk about it.
Yes, on his blog, there's a long series of explanations.
Oh,
And it's a huge site. It also has other scandalous things in, but just go to the podcast. And
can you write it here on the side with the chat so we can see exactly how it's spelled, and
Yeah.
we'll copy it down and go to it.
Okay.
I would totally love to do that. I would actually spend some time on that blog.
Rumi and Hafiz, but it's a huge body of work,
It sounds like it.
and he's done it all his Barber life. I mean, he's in his mid-60s now. Writes dot, is it a com or com? Oh, it's a .com. There you go. He did intend to publish, I guess. I'll leave it at that. But then there's Rumi, Hafiz. The Hafiz are wonderful. How to separate that out. DarvishKhanWrites.com. William Gannett. And these were Rumi quatrains. I remember when he was doing them, it was like living with somebody on another planet. And he was completely absorbed. There wasn't really anything else for a long time there. And then these Persian books came, and he'd glance at those. He also glances at other people's translations he respects, which are very few people. And he's a Dick Davis fan. And fan in that he respects Dick Davis, I mean. And so they're original in the sense that, and they tend to be accurate. Sometimes you won't go to rhyme at all unless it's because it will distort and the translation.
Right.
But he's strict on himself, and he's fussy. He'll obsess about a word for days till he's got it, what he thinks is right. And he's thorough.
Right.
He's thorough, yeah.
I think that's why it's so hard to find really good Hafez translations, whereas I feel like Rumi must be much easier to translate than Hafez.
Much easier.
Yeah.
It's more modern as well. It's much easier in the sense, I think they're a couple of 100 years apart, right?
Yeah,
Rumi is,
about 100 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for sharing those. I appreciate that.
Oh, I can't resist this. It's got a foot in it and a gnashing jaw. 267. A foot that would wander with joy at night, a hand that would pluck a fist of flowers. That hand was severed and that foot crushed by the ambush of death's gnashing jaws. I think I'll send that one to Coleman. I think he's like that. Oh. Yes, I'm so glad this came up because I totally forgot about them. And then suddenly said, oh, yes, I translated that. And I went, oh my God, what a horrible wife. I forgot. Translated 60 or 70 quatrains.
I don't know about anybody else, but I so often find that when I'm feeling a little discombobulated, poetry sets me right again. And just really reminds me what's, what this is all about, so I don't get lost in the details or all the things we do.
Well, Coleman has it all worked out. I mean, not only is he a poet, not only award-winning poet, not only does he translate as well as have a go at some more versioning that makes the translation clearer, but he's also a gorgeous bard. Rare quality to have it all in one package.
Yeah, I think he knows that too. Yeah, were you here when I told that story about meeting him and comparing him to Santa Claus?
Yeah.
Yeah, and how mortified he was.
Most professors are a bit vain, I find. They used to stand there behind the lectern,
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I'm so grateful that we have these wonderful poets to help us feel more connected to each other and to ourselves and to Baba. I'm eternally grateful for the word poetry, and I'm so happy that we've been able to do this. We're switching over to once a month. It'll be the first Wednesday of the month, starting next month. So we'll meet next week, and after that we'll switch over to once a month. Been doing this for a year and a half, and if anybody wants to do some of the, just let me know, because I'm happy to hand it over to you and let you run with it like you did with Francis Brabazon, Rainey. So I'm so happy to do that for anyone who wants to do that. And thank you all for your continued showing up. Makes it very possible to do these. If there was nobody here, I would probably just turn the computer off and go have a cup of tea.
I miss you and miss the Wednesday.
Wish I could join you.
The eclectic.
Yes. Looking forward to coming out to California and doing some poetry, my friend, seeing you in real life.
Yay.
Yeah.
It'll be great.
Yeah. I was planning a little tour to California when Delta hit, and I thought, the best laid plans. So I'm playing it by ear, but the plan is to come out there and do some. I'm memorizing I want to do a whole Rumi evening, just Rumi, and then come back and do some of my own work. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Blessings to you all. Good night.
Good night.
Look forward to seeing you next week.